welcome to Shaking the Dependency Tree. First of all, welcome to Full Access. I almost said pause on error. Oh my God.
Pause on here.
Welcome to Full Access and welcome to Shaking the Dependency Tree. Before I get going, a lot of the people in this room and out there in the world know who I am, but a lot of people don't. So I'm just going to do a quick run through to tell you who I am, but explain who am I and why do you care what I have to say about this topic. So my name is Darren Terry. I'm a fully certified Claris developer. I work for a company called Pacific Data Management, which is a Claris partner located in San Jose. We do FileMaker, well, we do everything, development for everything from FileMaker all the way up to Oracle, everything in between. I'm the FileMaker guy. I've worked for companies from the biggest company in the world all the way down to mom and pop shops and everything in between. I've been doing this for about 26 years. I joined PDM in the summer of 2000, San Jose, California. Before that, I worked at FileMaker Inc., and before that, I worked at Claris 1.0, way back when. I was in technical support for about 4 years. At the end of my 4-year period in tech support, I was supporting every single product that Claris then sold at that time. I was also the technical liaison for developer relations after my term in tech support, which was just a fancy way of saying I supported what was at that time known as the FileMaker Solutions Alliance. Now was known as the Claris Partner Program. Yeah. Yes, I was Rick Kelman before Rick Kelman. Yeah. He was Darren Terry after me. All right. So I put together a DevCon. I controlled and put together the developer relations section of the Claris website, etc. A whole bunch of stuff like that. I have been a speaker at various events. I've spoken at so many DevCons, I've lost track. I've also spoken at Pause on Error. I've presented this session at Pause on Error more than once. I've also spoken at various user groups around the country. Dig FM, big shout out to our Dig FM folks that are joining us. FM Disc in Southern California, FM Pug, etc. I've also published many articles in many publications. How many people remember FileMaker Advisor magazine? Yes, shout out to that. ISO FileMaker magazine, yes, all right. And also I have an article out there on this topic on FileMaker hacks. Shout out to Kevin Frank. What the session is all about. Today we're going to investigate the, well, if you're going to advance for me, thank you. Investigate the FileMaker calculation dependency tree. Well, what is that? That's a fancy way of saying it's the collection of all events and circumstances that will cause FileMaker to reevaluate a calculation and refresh its result. That's what the dependency tree is. And when I say calculation, I do not necessarily mean a calculation field. I do not necessarily mean a field of type calculation, although that will be the primary focus of part 1 of this talk. There are many, many ways that the calculation engine is exposed to us in FileMaker. Many, many layout objects, things like filtered portals, web viewers, charting objects, conditional visibility, conditional formatting, tooltips, etc. There's many, many ways that the calculation engine is exposed to us, and we're going to do a quick down and dirty survey. I don't have all day, but I have a limited time. But I'm going to go through a bunch of things and try to explain what are the rules under which you can trick FileMaker or cause FileMaker to reevaluate a formula. And knowing those rules helps you to construct a system that is dependable and predictable. Not knowing those rules, you get caught with your pants down, as we all know. I've been there. So today we're going to be covering, oh, thank you, calculation fields and also variables, fields that are defined based on variables. And then after a break, I'm going to cover things about the dependency tree layout level calculations. These are in a text object, you can insert a calculation directly on a layout. We're going to talk about conditional formatting. We're going to talk about custom functions. Specifically, if you have a custom function and you have a field defined that references that custom function, what happens to the field when you change the definition of the custom function out from under it? So we're going to investigate that. We're going to talk about the web viewer. We're going to talk about filtered portals. And we're going to talk about calculated custom menu items. Now, when you define custom menus, how many people knew that you could define a menu item in a custom menu and have its displayed name in the menu defined by a calculation? Okay, I'm getting about half of the people in this room are raising their hands, so you can. I'm going to show how to change that and how not to change that. And finally, conditional visibility. You know, there's a few things that are on this list that are not on this list that I'm not going to be covering, mainly either because they're too simple to demonstrate or they're too complex to demonstrate. Okay, I'm not going to cover tooltips. Tooltips have one and only one way to cause them to evaluate, and that's on hover. And by the way, it's on mouse in. It's on hover. It's not, there's a delay before the tooltip displays of 3 or 4 seconds, but it evaluated the moment the mouse hit over the object. That's not a dependency tree, that's a dependency telephone pole. So I'm not going to cover that. You'll also notice conspicuously missing from this list is charting objects. And the reason I'm not going to be covering charting objects is because they perfectly match the rules of something else that is on this list, namely filtered portals. So I'm going to cover filtered portals. Charting I could have created a chart. I really could have. It's a lot more work. You have to set up a lot of data behind the scenes to make it work, and I just didn't want to. I felt lazy, so I'm doing the condition of the filter portal instead, and then you'll just realize that it applies to charting object also. But there's another thing that's not on here, and that's record level access. When you go into managed security, when you go into and you're going to go to a table, you can define based on a calculation whether or not a user can view or edit a record. And that formula is there. It would have taken a lot of effort for me to it would have been easy to put it together. It would have been very hard to demonstrate. So I didn't do it. I'm going to cover those rules for you, but I'm not going to demo it. So the rules are fairly simple. And they follow the rules of stored calculation fields. And so that's once I cover that, you'll understand. It'll be there. Okay, so a word about expectations about this session. This is going to be an interactive session. This session was originally designed for pause on error, where everyone's sitting in a hotel room and people are sitting on the bed and I'm sitting over at the table and they're right there in your face. Okay.
Some of us were there.
Yes, and so yeah,
Some of us were sitting in a bathtub.
some were in a bathtub. Yes.
Alexi and I were in the bathtub together.
And then I presented this session at DevCon, which was a room with 600 or 700 people in it, and that didn't work the same way at all, but it was still interactive. And I had to change it how I interacted. I had to start polling the audience, and so I would say when I'm going to do this, if I click this button, how many people think it's going to change, and how many people think it's not going to change? And so I did this kind of a polling the audience thing. This is kind of a hybrid situation because we're in a room that's not quite as comfy as pause on error, but it's not as big as DevCon. So I'm going to expect people to shout out questions at me, interrupt me. By the way, I have a tendency to speak very rapidly. I have a reputation for being a fast talker in the FileMaker universe. If I hit something and go over it too quickly and I kind of jumble my words, raise your hand, shout at me, throw a tomato, something. Get my attention. I'll be happy to go back over it much more slowly so that I can enunciate properly. Okay. And this is my last slide. I figure we're at a FileMaker conference, so I'm going to be doing everything else in FileMaker. So I'm going to quit out of PowerPoint. I don't want to save anything in PowerPoint. Thank you very much. And I'm going to go to FileMaker. Okay. This is my beautiful FileMaker file. I'm going to be showing you some super secret sauce here, so you're under NDA. But this is my beautiful FileMaker file. And on to the demo. Okay, so let's begin with the topic. Now, I know from history, I presented the session several times in several different venues, as I said. And I know from history that this first topic, which is calculation fields and variables, will take up about half of the session. So Part one will be exclusively on this beautiful, highly professional looking screen that I put together for us. Okay, so a couple words about how this thing is put together. This is a very simple file. I have two tables. They look like, oh, well, let's go to the graph. Hello, get out of my way, please, Zoom. Zoom likes to get in the way. Okay, and I'm going to zoom in so you can see this. This is the super secret relationship graph of my system. I have a demonstration table, and then I have a child table, and there's a key and a match. And the key is just an auto enter serial. There's only one record, so it has the number 1 in it. The child has a field called match. Guess what? It has the number 1 in it. Okay, so very, very straightforward stuff here. And so this layout is set on my demonstration table. This is my portal of down here of the related values from the child table. And you can see I have a bunch of records in here. I have apple, orange, pear, and another apple, and a plum, and a pineapple, etc. Some fruit. And on this layout in the lower left-hand corner, I have 2 calculation fields. I'm going to zoom in. Now, as you know, calculation fields fall into 2 broad categories: stored and unstored, and they behave differently. A stored calculation field can be indexed, can be used as a key field for a relationship. Well, you can use an unstored calc as a key for a relationship, but that relationship becomes one way because it can't be stored, therefore can't be indexed. Okay, so this is a stored calculation field that is referencing my local field. This is my local value up here, Darren Terry. Down here is my stored calculation field referencing the local value. And so if I were to change my local value up here, remove my last name from it, and I click out, the stored value updates immediately, as expected. This is nothing unusual. There's no magic here. This is how FileMaker works. But you might expect that the thing that triggered that change was the fact that I clicked out of the field, which is a commit. When you click out of a field into the background, that commits the record. You might expect that it was the commit that caused that change, and that is not the case. The thing that caused that change is that local referenced data changed, and that's the dependency. So the dependency tree for a stored calculation field, there's 4 prongs off of it. There are 4 things that can cause a local stored calculated field to change. 4 and only 4. No more, no less. 4 exact things. They are, number 1, when you define the field. When you define the field, FileMaker will go through the whole table, and it'll save that value for that field in every record. Or if you redefine the field, that's number 2. If you go in and redefine the field, it'll do that also. Number 3 is if you make a new record. The moment you make a new record, FileMaker will calculate out and save all stored values. And number 4 is if the formula of the field references local data, that is data that's saved in the same record, not related data, not global data, local data, and that data changes, it will cause an update to it'll cause FileMaker to update the calculation. Fine, that's the dependency. Fine. So if I go back into this local field and I type my last name again, and I click out, bingo, bango, we got our stored calculation updates. Fine and dandy. Questions?
Did it just change 5 times, one of each keystroke, or did it only change when you committed?
Great question. Did it change 5 times, once with each keystroke, or did it change on commit? It was the commit that was the impetus for the change. It did not queue up 5 changes. It waited until the record was committed, checked to see, did local data change? Oh yes, local data did change. And now I have to update the record, the field. That's how it worked. Okay. Is it when the record changes or when you tab out of the field? Let's find out. I'm going to make this change, and I'm going to tab out. Now, pay attention to the bold red field at the bottom. That's my local field. I tab out. Record is not committed. Has changed. So it's not dependent on a commit. It is dependent on data changing, and the data did change. And if I revert this field, I'm getting a little feedback. If I revert this field, the formula, the calculated change will also revert. Okay, but I'm just going to commit because I like Darren instead of Darren Terry. Now, there is another field down here. I'm kind of zoomed in and it's moving me around. That's okay though. There's another field down here. This is an unstored calculation field, and it's referencing my child value, my related value. In this case, it's aimed at the first related record, which right now is Apple. And I can change this value, and I can make it say a kiwi. Okay, and then I can make this change. If I hit save, or if I click out of the field, it should update, right? Everyone's with me, right? And if I do, presto changeo, it did update. But you might think again that it was the commit or the save that made that change, and it is not. That is not what caused that change. For an unstored calculation field, there is one and only one thing that could cause it to update. One and only one thing. And that thing is refreshing the window. That's it. Unstored calculations are never written to disk. That means if you make a change to the formula, FileMaker does not go through all the records, does not update the results. Only the displayed record gets its update done, or displayed records if you're in a list view. Only the displayed records get their values updated. If you make a new record, it will update at that time for that new record, but that's because the screen refreshed. It's not because the record was made. That's important to understand. I'm going to prove that to you. So one thing I can do is I have this nifty little GTRR button in my portal. Guess what that does? Pops a window that now I'm looking at my child record in another window, which is very useful. And now what I'm going to do, if the mouse will cooperate with me, I'm going to go to layout mode and I'm going to cut this portal. Well, before I do that, let me do it. Let me just show you that you can make a change over here. If I turn this back to Apple and I click out, pay attention to the italic blue kiwi in the lower left-hand corner, and it will update. And you might think that the reason that updated is because I made the change over here in this window over here, and that is not the case. The reason it updated is because the background window refreshed. And why did the background window refresh? The dependency tree. Lovely. The reason the background window refreshed is because this related field that I edited is on the layout in that portal right there. Okay. If I remove the portal and cut it, not delete. I did that at DevCon one time and it was a pain in the butt. If I go back over here and I change this back to kiwi, or let's say watermelon this time, and I'm going to click out. How many people think that when I click out, that the blue apple in the background window is going to change to watermelon? Raise your hand if you think it's going to change. Not a single hand. Awesome. Great. How many people think it will not change? It definitely won't change. That's about half of the people in the room. And then the other half, I'm going to guess, don't know.
With Darren, are you saying when you commit, or are you saying when you exit the field without committing?
Either way.
Really?
Either way. I could tab. I'm not going to tab, though. I'm just going to click into the background to prove this point. I'm going to tell you right now, Apple's still going to be Apple in that background window. And there's my proof. And the reason, why is that? Why? Because it didn't refresh the window. Why didn't it refresh the window? Because there was no reason to. Correct. There's no related data on that layout. So there's no reason to refresh it. Therefore, the calc didn't update. Okay. This is an important concept to understand. But a lot of times, how often have you built a system like an invoicing system where you got a portal, you got line items, you got a total at the bottom. You're trying to get that total to update or not update, and it does update. It's there's mysteries about why it happens and when it happens. Well, it happens every time there's a refresh. That's what I just demonstrated. Go back. What happens if you hide the portal or put it off to the side? Great question. Well, let's try that. Let me get rid of you. Let me widen you. I got my gray area. I'm just going to shove this portal out here in the no man's land for one first. And I still have my other window open, so let's take a look at that other window. I'm going to change it back to Apple. Now, how many people think with the portal off to the side out in the no man's land that it's going to allow this to change? Okay, that's a few. How many people think that that portal being in no man's land is the same as having it cut off the layout and therefore it won't change? Oh, even more people think that. Let's find out. One, keep an eye on watermelon, bottom left corner. 1, 2, 3, bingo. It updated. Okay, having the portal off the layout means it's still on the layout. Okay. Question.
What if it's on an app panel, but the
I will demonstrate that. I will show you that. I'll give you the spoiler. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's on a tab panel that's not displayed. It doesn't matter if it's a slide panel that's not displayed. It doesn't matter if it's in a popover that's not exposed. It doesn't matter if you have the hide condition turned on. It doesn't matter. If it's on the layout, it's on the layout. So, and it will cause the update. So,
If you have a 3-line portal, if you got a 4th and 5th item, are those considered on the layout?
if you have a 3-line portal with more than 3 line items in the relationship, is that considered on the layout? Yes, it's on the layout. I'm going to show you something else. You don't even need the fields on the layout. It's a little spoiler. If the portal's on the layout, it's sufficient to cause the update. I can talk higher. So I'm going to, oops, hang on. I left my fields behind. So I'm going to grab my portal and my labels, and I'm going to put them in a slide panel. Let me get my glasses because I'm getting old. So where is my panel tools? I want get out of the way, please. I'm getting the controls from Zoom. Oh, I could. You're right. I could do the insert menu. Let's say I have 1 and 2. So I have 2 different panels. And I'm going to go to my second one. And I'm going to drag this guy up in here. And go to the first one and drag you back into the layout so that I can see you. I know. Can you believe I'm a real professional developer? Stop it. Here, go over to browse mode. Okay, now the portal's not displayed. It's on that hidden panel on number 2. It's right there, but I'm not displaying it. And if I go back to my window and make a change, okay, make you pair. I like pairs. Okay, watch Apple in the lower left-hand corner. 1, 2, 3, presto changeo. That's enough. Okay, so I've done it, all of it. I tried conditional visibility to make it invisible with a 1 as the formula. I put it on a slide panel. I put it inside a popover. I put it in a slide panel inside a popover. Doesn't matter. What's going to happen is FileMaker knows that it's on the layout, and that's sufficient. Yes, question.
Number 1, does it matter if a different user, different client changes the data?
Does it matter if another client is changing the data?
If you're a child's window, I would change it on my computer. Here's update on that.
Yeah, if he makes the change on his computer, does it cause my computer to update automatically? Keep in mind that when you have 2 windows open to the same file, FileMaker treats them as 2 separate clients. Okay, so that's how you can lock yourself out of a record, right? Okay, so I've already demonstrated multi-user, kind of. It's not perfectly multi-user, but it's kind of like it. The answer to your question is yes, it'll update immediately as soon as that record is committed. They have to commit it in order to tell the server, I've made my change, and then the server needs to inform all of the clients that are on that layout or have that field displayed to update. And the server sends out a signals and says, you need to update your window. And FileMaker says, okay, and refreshes. Second question.
Would that mean, since it's refreshing, if it's hidden or any of those conditions, that it's pulling down all that data, regardless if it's hidden or not on the layout?
The question, yes. The question is, does that mean that FileMaker's pulling down all the data, even though the layout or the portal or the fields are hidden, if they're on a hidden thing? I can't answer that with definitive. I'm afraid to answer that definitively because Clay's in the room, and people that actually wrote the product are in the room. The answer is yes. All that data is shoved down. So here's how it works. When you make a change to a child record and FileMaker needs to propagate that data out, FileMaker cannot and does not send just that field's data to all the clients. It sends the entire record. And well, with one asterisk, it sends every field in the entire row, whether they're displayed or not, to every client that it has any of them showing anywhere on the layout. Okay. The thing that's not sent down the pipe is undisplayed container data. FileMaker is very efficient. It doesn't shove down giant container data that it doesn't need to. But non-container data, the entire width of the table is shoved down to every client. Clay had to raise his hand.
Well, actually, what's sent from the server to the client is just the row number, the row ID of what changed. And if the client thinks that row is displayed on the field or on the window at all, then the client will actually do the download.
Got it.
So we're not pushing all the rows of all the records. With every
Oh, got it.
we could send the ID of the row that changed.
I did not know that.
And then
Clay
then
said,
then that triggers the download.
got it. I'm going to repeat for the recording and for the stream. Clay said what happens is when the server receives the notification that a record has changed, it sends out only the row ID out to all the clients. And then the client determines, do I need to request the contents of this row from the server? And if so, it downloads all the data. They're not proactively pushing all the data down from the server to the client on every data change. That totally makes sense. Yes, there was a question back there. Jesse first.
Comment on the question. So the comment is, don't wait 64 in code container data.
Yeah, he said, don't base 64 encode container data and store it in text fields, thinking that you're somehow being more efficient.
Because all the parts that FileMaker has about efficiently doing container data goes out the window.
Right. All that efficiency goes out the window if it's stored as text.
My question is, if it's refresh the window, if you refresh the object, you can refresh the object switch stat on the is that also refreshed?
Yeah, the question is, instead of refreshing the entire window, if you refresh the object or refresh the portal, those are two other steps, will it cause the update? And the answer is yes. I'm using refresh window only because, let me make sure yes it is, okay. Only because it's efficient for me, and it was a simple demonstration. But yes, you could target your refresh to just the portal based on refresh object by naming the portal, or refresh portal and aiming at the portal. So you could end up in a situation where some unstored counts have refreshed and others not. I suppose that is true, although FileMaker knows very well when it needs to refresh things outside of a script. So if data had changed for a field that is displayed on the layout, it's going to update whether you issue an update of a explicit refresh or not. Okay, so, but yes, you could potentially get into a situation, I suppose, under weird circumstances, where you might end up with a situation where part of the screen is refreshed and the other part is not, I suppose. Questions? Yes, sir.
So then, according to the record ID logic, that means if a portal or a list view or something like that is like the record that was refreshed was like more than 20 records down, I believe that's the limit, whatever that limit is, then it would not, 25, then it would not pull down the data
until it's revealed. Correct. So he's asking if the record ID of a changed record is way down in the list and it's not on the screen, like you're in a list view or outside the bounds of the portal, and therefore that record is not displayed, will that cause the client to download the data and refresh it? And I believe the answer is no. The client will only request the refresh of the data when it's revealed, I believe. Question in the back.
How consistent is that with FileMaker Go and WebDirect?
How consistent is that with FileMaker Go and WebDirect? I don't talk about those fringe technologies. I'm just, no, I'm joking. I believe, so FileMaker Go is essentially the pro client. So it behaves the same way, is my understanding. I haven't tested it. WebDirect is an entirely different animal. I'm not positive how WebDirect works, and I could turn this on with WebDirect, turn on Instant Web Publishing, and see if we could go in and play around with it. But I think that's probably something that should happen after everything, because I have a lot of material to go over today. But I am curious. I want to find out. Any other questions before we? Yes, sir.
I can tell you with WebDirect, like all of the stuff that you're talking about with refreshing the window or refreshing objects, refreshing the data to refresh. In WebDirect, you don't want to use refresh window because you get that ugly.
Because the entire thing happens.
So targeting the object is a better way to do it.
Okay, so he's saying with WebDirect, refresh window causes the entire window to refresh, just like in the client, causes all the data to update, but it's ugly because it's web. WebDirect, you want to target things with targeted refresh objects instead. Very good. Yes. Would being able to change data like that so easily be you mean a security concern? You said safety. A security concern. Yeah. Well, yeah. Of course, I'm just demoing this. So you would want to have this secured if it was like a real world solution. You might want this secured so that only the person who owns the record can edit it. I was alluding to that with record level access earlier, talking about you could define a formula that says only when this evaluates to true can the record be edited. And that formula is wide open. It's the entire calculation engine. I'm going to get back to that. I'm going to touch on that. Yeah, Alexis said that it can affect your performance. It could affect a lot of things. And you could also define that formula incorrectly in a way that causes FileMaker never to evaluate it. And that's a problem. So I'm going to get to that. Okay, so before I move on to variables, are there any other questions about calculations? Because usually there's a lot of questions. Oh, I must have done a great job. All right. So let's talk about variables for a second. I have these two fields here on the screen. I have
Summaries and aggregate functions are all just treated the same, follow the same rules as other unsorted.
yeah, summaries and aggregate functions force the calculation to, well, not aggregate functions. Aggregate functions that refer to related data force the formula to be unstored. You cannot have a stored field. They behave like any other unstored calculation field, correct. They're an unstored calculation field. There's 4 things, by the way, in FileMaker that can force a calculation to be unstored. 4 things. If it refers to related data, if it refers to global data, if it refers to summary data, like a summary field, or if it refers to another unstored calculation field. Those are the 4 things that if you do that in a calculation, FileMaker will not allow you to store the field. It forces it to be unstored. Okay, that's separate. That's if a field refers to a global field. You could also define a calculation field as a global field. So, but the behavior is the same. The behavior is it's considered a stored calculation field. Local reference data causes the update. Yes, sir.
I just had kind of a question about, we have stored calculation fields, but we also have auto enter calculation. What are the main differences?
He's asking, what are the main differences between a field of type calculation and like a text field that has an auto enter calculation on it? Well, the differences are, it depends. So if you go into manage database, and I flip over, I'm sorry to have to drag this down. I don't know if you can see.
You can move the palette instead, can't you?
Can you?
Can you just drag the palette down to the bottom of the screen?
Oh, look at that. Yes, you can. Well,
That will be in your way down there.
yes, exactly. Now it's down there. That's okay. That's okay. So if I define this local value as a auto enter calculated value, and I give it some formula, like 1. What? Oh, am I doing it? No, it's a text field. It's a text field. I think I know what I'm. Okay, so you'll notice there's a second checkbox down here that says do not replace existing value, if any. And if this is checked, then that calculation will only evaluate once and it won't reevaluate. But if it's unchecked, it will try to reevaluate. But the rules of its reevaluation are the same as a stored calculation field. So keep in mind that if locally referenced data changes, it'll cause an update. If the formula does not reference local data at all, it won't update.
So is there any real difference?
You can edit it. A text field, he's asking, is there a difference between a stored calculation and a text field with an auto enter calculation? And yes, you can edit an auto enter calculation. You can't edit a calculation field, so you have to do something about that. Yes.
Can you explain the difference between a lookup and an auto-enter calc or just lookup through
Can I explain the difference between a lookup and an auto enter calc that looks up a specific piece of data? Yes, I can. That's outside the scope of this conversation. I'll get back to you later on that. I don't want to go off too far into the weeds if I can avoid it, folks. Yes, Jesse.
What if an auto-enter calculation references the stored field as well as a global field? I know the global field wouldn't cause it update, but if it was like global field plus some stored field and you change the stored field, would that trigger the update?
Yeah, so the question is, if an auto, did you mean an auto enter calculated in a text field, or are you also asking, because you couldn't have a stored calc that references a global field? Got it. He's asking if you have an auto enter calculation on a text field, say, and the formula references both a global field and local data, will it cause the update if that checkbox is unchecked? Will it cause it to update if the local data changes? And the answer is yes. It doesn't matter that it also is referencing other stuff. The local data change will cause it to update. So that's the global data should not, but I can test that. You want to test that? Let's find out. So I'm going to create a new field. I need a global field, don't I? Oh, I have a global Boolean. Yay. Okay, so I'm going to make a new field called the tester. Ooh, make it text. Give it an auto enter calc, and I'm going to say case local Boolean or global Boolean equals 1. Give me my local value. Otherwise, or, yeah, that makes sense. I'll just concatenate them. Then I will give my local Boolean. How's that? That should work. Yeah, I guess I could do that.
Can we do a survey before you?
That's a great question. Let's find out. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm just taking a global Boolean and concatenating it to my local value. Oh, you're right. You're right. I need to uncheck the checkbox. Please uncheck. Thank you very much. Okay, and I'm going to throw this on the layout because I can. And this is called the tester. I'm going to browse. Okay, so there's no value there yet, but if I go, and I also need my global Boolean, don't I? Let me throw my global Boolean on there. I don't need the label. Okay, so right now it's 0. If I change this to 1, ooh, the global field is sufficient to cause it to update. Very good, very interesting and good to know.
So that makes it different than a stored calculation.
Correct. That's kind of weird. Yeah. So let me change that into a calc field.
Update every record in that.
No, it's an auto enter. That was an auto enter calc. That doesn't go through proactively and update.
Yeah, but you changed it and the current record will trigger its auto enter calculation.
But let's test this. Oops, that was wrong. Well,
Can you say if you actually rather choose built in?
Okay,
Yeah, you have to change the goal. And then-
so I just changed this into a number field now instead of a calculation field. If I change my global Boolean, will that cause it to update? Yes, it does.
But didn't it change the storage type on storage?
Yes, it did. You're right. That's a refresh. That's a refresh issue, not a local data change. You're right. Yeah. Good to know. All right.
Wait, before you take too much off. What about the checkbox where, if both are, if all the reference fields are empty?
Oh, so the question now is, do not evaluate if all reference fields are empty? What about that?
So, I mean, the fact that you still could have it where it changes the value up to some point, so when you clear both of those values, the global and the local values, then I think that the calculation would still show
Well, let's find out.
that it would not change.
Well, let's find out.
That last blank, whenever you end up.
First, I'm going to change this to text. And I'm going to uncheck that so that it, oh no, it was already do not evaluate if all reference fields are empty. So, all right. Okay, so if I put that field back on the layout, here's my tester. I could do it that way. No, I guess I can't do it that way. Someone said undo. We don't undo around here. We just forge forward. And my Boolean, global Boolean, can get rid of that thing. I don't like it. Away. Okay. Browse mode, and if I make this change, now that checkbox is unchecked, right? I did uncheck it, right?
You left it checked. Which is,
Do not evaluate. Oh, that's what I want. Okay, fair. I left it checked. Very good. So when I undo this, you're saying when I click out, the tester should still say Darren. I'm going to tell you right now it's going to go empty. And the reason it's going to go empty is because the field thinks it doesn't need to display anything because the other fields are all empty.
it says don't evaluate if they're empty.
You're right. That's what the checkbox says. That's not what the checkbox means. No. The idea is, okay, fair enough. I would expect, based on the semantics of how the checkbox is worded, I would expect that it would not re-evaluate based on all the fields going empty.
What if you do it the other way around and change the global last?
Okay, let's try that. So I left it. So if I go back in, what's that? Oh, repeat the question. What if I reverse the logic? What if I change? What if I add the global last? Well, if I go and add you're trying to see if it will not update.
It will not update.
If I change the local value, it'll definitely update. So I don't want to do that. So I want to leave the local value empty, right?
No, put them in the local value, put them in that thing, and then reverse the order in which you remove them.
Okay, reverse the order in which I removed them. All right. So right now it's 0 Darren Terry. So then I go to Darren Terry and remove it, right?
Right.
Now it's 0.
Okay, now if you remove 0, does it?
If I remove 0, does it clear it? Yes, it does. So it is the same. Basically it's saying if all of the referenced fields are empty, clear me. That's what that checkbox means. So that's not what the checkbox says. Okay, any other questions about stored versus unstored calcs before I move on? Excellent. Okay, real quick, I want to talk about stored calculations and unstored calculations that reference global variables, because this is an important concept. I've seen people do this. I've seen people paint themselves into a corner and not understand why FileMaker is behaving the way it is. So I have two fields on this layout. I have a field called stored calc based on the global variable, and an unstored calc. And if you peeking under the hood here, where's my global variable? Here they are. So I'm going to zoom in so you can see these. I got my stored calc based on global variable, and it's just equal to $var. and I have an unstored calc. Guess what? It's just equal to double bar, but it's set to unstored. So, and I have this button here that increments double or bar without a refresh. And if I go into layout mode and show you the formula, the script, it's very simple. All it's doing is setting double bar to itself +1 and not issuing a refresh. And as we all know, when a script ends, there is no implicit refresh. So, and then I have one with a refresh. Okay. So if I go to browse mode and I click this button, how many people are expecting that the stored calculation will show the number 1 after I click the button? Couple, that's brave. Maybe 2 or 3 people. How many people are expecting that the stored calculation will still be blank after I click the button? That's about half the people in the room. All right. For the unstored calculation, when I click that button, how many people expect the number 1 to show? A couple, more than the stored one. And how many people think the unstored one will also be empty? Still without refresh. Okay, almost no one raised their hand for thinking that it would still be empty. Let's find out. Let's find out. So I'm going to click this button. Keep an eye on these 2 fields here in the middle of the screen. I'm going to zoom in so you can see them a little bit better. When I click this button, what happened? Nothing. That's the short answer. Nothing happened. Why? Correct, because globals are not in the, well, variables are not in the dependency tree at all for stored or unstored calcs. That's why. So just to prove my point, I'm going to click it a few more times just to make sure that there is. Okay, and you'll also notice something else. The variable is on the layout. I have it as a merge variable right here, and that didn't update either. Why didn't that update? Exactly the same reason. Because there was no reason, because the page didn't refresh. It's because there was no refresh. That's why. If I increment it with the refresh, who thinks that the stored calc will update? Okay, I got a few. How many people think the unstored calc will update? And that's the majority. All right, great. So let's find out. Presto changeo 1, 2, 3. The unstored calc updates because the window refreshed. The stored calc did not update. Well, it did update. It refreshed. The window refreshed. It did not evaluate. Why didn't it evaluate? Because it's a stored field. What's so special about a stored field that would make it not evaluate? Because variables are not in the dependency tree at all. In other words, this is important to understand, an important concept. In other words, a stored calculation that does nothing but reference a variable is useless. Will not evaluate except for under very specific circumstances. And I'll show you one of those circumstances right now. To make a new record, remember I said there were 4 things that cause a stored calc to update? To make a new record, presto changeo, the new record has the value. Okay, so if I go back to my old record, let me zoom out so I can actually see my screen. If I go back to my old record, how many think that it updated? One person thinks it might have updated. Let's find out. It did not. It did not update. And why didn't it update? Well, the calc field's not set to global storage. It's set to normal storage. It's a stored calculation field. So each record has its own value, and the version on this record never updated. There was nothing that told it to update. Very good thing to know, right? You can keep yourself out of a lot of trouble by predicting this behavior and knowing about this behavior. Any questions about that?
I thought you said earlier that when you get a new record, it updates for the table, but it doesn't. It only updates for that new record.
He's asking. So earlier I had said, he thought I said, when you make a new record, that it updates for the table, and no, it updates for that record. It updates every stored calculation in that record at the moment that you make the new record. Also, if I were to go in and redefine the field, redefine its formula, it would update. But in that case, it updates for every record in the table. Okay. So maybe that's what you were hearing. Okay, so that's the difference between stored and unstored when it comes to referencing a variable. I have never seen a valid reason for using a stored calculation field that references nothing but a variable. And I've had people try to challenge me on that. No, wait a minute, what about this? And someone one time said something about, well, doing an import counter. You could do like having a serial number for the import. And I thought about it and I went, well, okay, maybe. Relying on a stored calculation field to have persistent data that never changes is a little bit risky to me. It seems risky to me, but yeah, I suppose you could do it, and that would work supposedly, I guess. But anyway, so yes, Ken. I'm sorry. Okay, so he's saying it does work. Fair enough. Fair enough. I've just never seen it in practice. I personally, when I need to have, when I define a calculation field that's referencing a variable, I want it to show me what the current state of the variable is. And that means an unstored calc and a refresh. Then you can get it. Okay, we are right at the 1 hour mark. We're about ready for our break. Are there any other questions before we move on and go into our break?
So
Alexi.
I like late at night and without permission, I was trying to use the global variable in a hide.
She was using a global variable as the formula for a hide condition. Okay, and let me guess, you were using a field, you were using a script to set the variable, and it wasn't causing the hide to update.
Right.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to guess that we'll get there. I'm going to talk about the hide condition and when it works and when it doesn't. That's after the break. But yeah, that's predictable. I would predict that refresh would work. If you refresh the window, it would cause it to vanish or reappear. By the way, there's no reason to do. Oh yeah, no, I see why you're doing that. That totally makes sense. You'd probably be better off setting a global field for that rather than a global variable for that, I think. But in any event, any other questions?
No, but I'm just gonna second what you said. Sometimes if I've got something that's sluggish, rather that I'll say, well, normally I'd use the global variable here, but I'm gonna use the global field in this case, just so it is in real time does the refresh.
So you're backing me up. Thank you very much. All right. So we have now a moment to take a nice little break. The session was scheduled for, the part 1 is scheduled for 1 hour. We've done our 1 hour. Half an hour break? 15-minute break. Half an hour break? Okay, half an hour break. Get your coffee, smoke them if you got them. I'll stay right here. I need to get some water, but I will stay right here to answer any questions that anyone might have. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Did you hear me say anything?
Okay, we're recording again. Is your Zoom good?
Looks good. Yeah, I'm still sharing. My clock still says it's got 4 more minutes. Do I have to wait? There's no one waiting out there, right? I don't want to leave anybody out. Okay. I'm just going to skip the PowerPoint for part 2 because it was the same PowerPoint as part 1. Everyone knows who I am by now, so we could just dive right back in. So that was calculation fields and variables that I just covered. If anyone has any questions on those, we can go back to look at those. But I'm going to move on. The next thing I want to talk about is layout calculations. That's a little hot. I'm getting a little feedback. Okay, so layout calculations. How many people knew that you could put a text object on the layout and type in there and put a layout calculation and have it evaluate? All right, beautiful. Yeah, finally, right? Before this feature, the only layout calculation we really had was the web viewer. And it's not the same. It doesn't work the same way. So what are the rules for layout calculations? And yeah, Clay,
You hit the button control thing, you can calc.
you could do button controls and put calcs in them. Yeah, you're right. You could you could do button. You could use button controls and put calculated values in there, and all right, and also placeholder text. Yes.
You could also use a hide calculation to define a variable, and then that variable will be available.
Yeah, you could use it. Okay, you could use a hide condition or something like that to define a variable and then display the variable. All right, fine. Okay. But layout calculations are bossa nova. And the reason they're bossa nova is because they just work. And I'm going to show you a little bit about it. So they follow basically the rules of unstored calculation fields, which means they update when you refresh the window. But unlike unstored calculation fields, they do not rely on commit. And they don't, and it's beautiful. So what we have here is I have another layout. It's the same record set. I have my local Boolean 1 versus 0, and I have my related related values down here, apple, pear, whatever. And I'm going to go to related record to my apple record, and I'm going to change it. And you'll see that by changing apple to say pear, or let's try strawberry. Okay. When I click out, what I have down here is a text object, and in the text object is a calculation. It says this is the related value, and then it's got the brackets, and then the F symbol for the formula, and the formula is related value, related colon value, or child colon value, whatever the child table is called. So when I click out in this window over here, I'm expecting that this layout calculation at the bottom is going to update. So let's find out if it does. I'm assuming it's going to update, and sure enough, it does. And the reason it updated is for the same reason that an unstored calc that was sitting right there would have updated. It has to do with the window refreshed, and it knew the window refreshed. It knew it had to reevaluate. Well, kind of. The layout calcs are a little bit better than that. They work a little bit better. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to cut this portal. So there are no related values on the layout, only the layout calc. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry, I meant to do this in layout mode. Here's the formula of my layout calc. It's very simple. This is secret sauce here. It's just child double colon value. So now I'm going to change this back to Apple. Now, when I change this back to Apple, how many people think when I click out that my layout calc is going to update? Raise your hand if you think it's going to update. That's about half the people in the room. How many people think it definitely will not update when I click out? One solitary person. You're very brave. You're very brave. Okay, so let's find out. 1, 2, 3. Keep an eye on strawberry right here in the lower left-hand corner. 1, 2, 3, and it does update. Unlike unstored calculation fields, which rely purely on a refresh, for whatever reason, the dependency tree for layout calculations, they simply work exactly how I want them to work when I want them to work. And I give Claris clapping for that. Yes, Clay.
Well, I just want to say that there's the dependency matrix for the calcs and calcing. But layouts, each layout has a little dependency tree too. That has fields that are in things like.
So Clay's telling me.
It's a separate. It's more you're getting into like, oh, there's two dependency trees. There's the layout one
and the calc one. Got it. So Clay is telling me that there's the dependency tree for calculation fields, but layouts and layout objects have their own dependency tree that's separate. And now we're getting into the weeds of the difference between the layout, the calculation dependency tree, and the layout dependency tree. So very good. But anyway, I tested this repeatedly in various scenarios, trying to get it to break, and it simply doesn't break. It simply works the way I want it to when I want it to. Yes, sir.
So will that also cause a unstored calculation of Apple to refresh since that is on the layout?
Well, let's find out. His question is, will my unstored calc refresh since the layout calc is on there? Well, let's find out. So it is called, what did I call that thing? Unstored calc of related value. That's what it's called. And right now it says Apple. So I'm going to change that. This is not my related field. This is my locally defined unstored calc field that references my related field. So if I change my related field, say to pair, and I click out, what are we expecting to happen over here? Let's find out. They both update. The fact that the layout calc updated forced the refresh, and the refresh forced the unstored calc to update. Does that make sense? Yes, Jesse.
So it's
What if
kind
the
of a
layout calc directly referenced the unstored calc? There was no unstored calc.
What if the the layout calculation referenced the unstored calc and I took the layout calc off the layout?
I would think that would not have.
Well, let's find out.
right.
He's thinking it will not update. Well, let's find out. So if I change my calculation formula, that's right, edit calculation. I'm going to change that. Instead of referencing child value, I'm going to reference my local unstored calc of related value. There we go. And now you're saying you believe when I change this from pear back to apple and I click out, you're saying it will not update. And let's find out if that's correct, because the layout calculation is referencing the unstored calculation field, and there's nothing in the dependency of the layout of the unstored calculation to refresh. Well, let's see if the layout calc will kick it into gear. And it does not. You are correct.
Darren, would you zoom in on the definition of your layout calc?
Sure. Oh, wrong window. It would help if I was in the right window. I could have, by the way, I could have put this text string in the actual formula if I'd wanted to.
Would you do one other experiment?
Sure.
Will you make that fully qualified on the field name?
Fully qualify the field name.
Yeah.
Okay, let's oh, hang on. I got to zoom out though, so I can reach my edit layout calc. Fully qualified. All right, it's called demonstration. Okay, now it's fully qualified. You think that'll make a difference?
No, I'm just curious. I don't know.
That's, well, let's find out. There was a time when layout calcs were introduced, what, in 2024? Am I right? There was a time when they would not update if it was not a fully qualified field, but that was fixed in 2025. So I'm wondering if that will make a difference. So let's find out. We're going to go back to pair. 1, 2, 3. Keep an eye on Apple in the lower left-hand corner, and it does not make a difference. So you're right. Having the formula of the layout calc referencing the unstored calc only will not fix it, because the unstored calc is not being kicked into gear. Correct. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say one other thing. In my own experiments with layout calcs, and I have not tested in 2026, in general, I find it's better to fully qualify them, because if you're editing some data on the layout, just local, right? Same record, like first, middle, last name, right? And then you've got full name showing with the layout calc. If you fully qualify it, then as you exit each field, you'll see the layout calc update. But if you don't fully qualify it, you have to exit the record. You have to commit.
Got it. Commit the record. Got it. Okay, so he's saying when you create a layout calculation that's referencing local fields, like for instance a full name, you're building it in the layout calc. So you have first name and middle name and last name, or ampersand. He's saying it's better to fully qualify each field name for those local fields, because as you're editing them and tabbing from field to field, the layout calc will update as you tab. Otherwise, if they are unqualified field names that are just local, it will wait until after you commit the record or exit the record before it will evaluate. Good to know. Thank you very much, Kevin. All right. So are there any questions about layout calcs? The good news is they just work the way I expect them to. Question.
I'm assuming that calculated values on button bar segments follow the same rules.
Assuming that calculated segments of button bars follow the same rules, I have no idea. Let's find out. So I'm going to change my layout calc. Actually, all right, I'm going to take it off. Not going to take it off. I'm just going to move it off to the side. So we aren't dealing with it. All right.
But that might cause
You're right. All right. How about I cut it instead.
First session, we learned that in the first session.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, that's fair. All right, so let's try a button bar segment. And hello, move my mouse. Thank you. Okay, and I'm going to create a button bar, and I'm going to put my child, right? Value as my first button bar segment. And I don't need these other button bar segments, right? I wish I could just delete that. That's okay. Okay, so let's try a button bar segment and find out. The field is not on the layout. When I click out, keep an eye on the segment, it does work. Same exact behavior. So I kind of like that. I think that's beautiful. All right, I'm going to put it back to Apple because I'm happy with Apple being my first field, my first record. All right, okay. So that's that. Conditional formatting is very similar. It just works. In fact, it works a little bit better. In fact, and the reason it works a little bit better is it doesn't rely on any form of, it doesn't rely on a commit. It simply changes as your dependency or whatever the formula is, as the related values change, whether they're local or not, whether global or related, they update immediately. So I'm going to demonstrate that. Right here, I have my local value, and it's conditionally formatted. You could tell because when I click in, the bold red goes away. It's conditionally formatted, and my conditional format formula is very simple. I'm saying when my local Boolean is true, the formula is simply aimed at the Boolean. I have a local Boolean field. It's a number field. It has a 1 or a 0 in it. When it is true, that is when it's set to 1, then I make my field bold red. Otherwise, it's not. So I have my local Boolean here. This is my local Boolean. I'm going to confirm that by double clicking it. Yes, demonstration file, Boolean. So as I toggle this, we're going to watch the behavior of my name from bold to red without a commit. It immediately updates. In fact, it immediately updates as data is changing without a commit. I think that's awesome. Personally, I think that's the best behavior in FileMaker because that's exactly what I want it to do. I want conditional formatting to always be up to date every time, regardless of the situation. So what happens when the conditional formatting value, the formula rather, references related data? So over here, I have a different one. This is still my local field, same field, but it's formatted with conditional formatting with a formula that's aimed at my related data. So if I go to layout mode, you can I'll show you what the formula is. If the related Boolean is true, it goes bold red. Okay, and that field is not on this layout. Instead, I have a button. And all it does is it toggles the value of my related Boolean. And the way I'm doing that is simply by setting it to not of itself. The not function reverses a true or false statement. So to toggle the Boolean true or false, I'm just setting it to not itself. And oh, by the way, there is no refresh in that script, right? Yeah, I don't have a script. I don't have a refresh. It's just setting the field. And it's not even committing the record. So when I click this button, who thinks my name's going to go bold red? A couple. Who thinks it won't and will require a refresh? A few more. All right, let's find out. 1, 2, 3. No commit. Related data. Immediate change. Exactly what I'm looking for. So give the hand to the developers for that because I think that's awesome. Any questions about conditional formatting? Yes, sir.
Not really a question, but maybe I want to get your perspective. That behavior would seem to make conditional formatting very expensive. Let's say if it's on a list view where there are lots of records, expensive in terms of performance
Right.
in a multi-user context.
Yes. So your point, his observation is that that behavior seems very, very desirable from my perspective, but also would seem to be very expensive, especially on, say, a list view layout with a lot of rows. And the answer is absolutely yes. Conditional formatting is very expensive. It can cause your performance to crash. Not crash the file, but sit there and spin. You'll get a spinning wheel depending on how much you have. And also depending on how complex that formula is and how many items it's applied to and how many formulas per item. Because you can apply more than one conditional formatting calculation to an item, a whole bunch. Yes, sir.
Would it only refresh for the active record, or would it refresh for the whole list?
The question is, would it refresh only for the active record or for the whole list? That's a great question. Let's find out. How can I find out? Oh, I can go to, well, my window's kind of small and I can't really show you more than one record at a time, or can I?
If it's a window refresh.
Layout mode. Let me allow for list view. Oh, it does allow list view. All right. So
That shows that you have the active.
yeah, I'm on the second layout. Let me shrink up my window. Whoops. Let me shrink up my window a bit. Not my window, my layout. So that I can get more than one record at a time in my window. Okay. There's an awful big header there. All right. This should work, right? Okay, now I'm going to instead, I'm going to change my Boolean to my global Boolean because that's how you affect multiple, records and across a record set, right? So here's my global Boolean. I'm going to change my formula to reference my global Boolean. Notice how FileMaker forces that to be fully qualified. I like that. Okay, so now my formula is based on this field here. And we can see, I'm going to put another value over here. I'll go say John Smith. Okay. Now, I'm going to click this button and I'm going to turn the Boolean true. And we're going to see what happens to John Smith down below. How many people think it's going to update and turn red? Only a couple. How many people don't think it will? Think it will not? A couple. How many are listening to me? Okay. All right. Here we go.
Is the Boolean global?
Yes, that is a global Boolean. 1, 2, 3, and it updates it updates the conditional formatting on every record in the view. By the way, if this was 100 records tall, if I had a list view with 100 records tall, it would update on 100 records. So cool, Bossa Nova. I think that's Bossa Nova. I think it's good. All right. This is not the version of the file that's uploaded to the website. I have my pristine version of the file up there. You can download this file. It's completely unlocked. You can tear it apart and play with it all you want. These changes that I made today are not in that version, so it's safe. I'm safe to make these changes and screw with my file. All right, so back to the menu. All right, any other questions? Wait, before I do that, any other questions about conditional formatting?
General question about the whole dependency tree.
Sure.
So you're demonstrating it with just a child relationship. Does this extend indefinitely out to grandchildren, great-grandchildren, aunts and uncles, second cousins?
Yeah. And other kinds of relationships. So the question is this. I'm demonstrating this with a super simple file that has just a parent-child relationship. Do these rules, not just for conditional formatting, I'm assuming everything, do these rules apply to grandchild or great-grandchild relationships or anything else like that? And to extend your question, this is also a simple equal join relationship. Do the rules extend to, say, a Cartesian join? Do they extend to a multi-predicate join, etc.? The answer is yes. It doesn't matter. It's related data. The rules are the rules. If it's non-local data, the unstored calc won't refresh until the window's refreshed. I'm sorry? Yeah, and a self join is included. If you have a self join with a record related to itself and you're changing the related version of itself, Well, you're changing itself. Yeah, the rules are the rules. If the field is not on the layout, it's going to behave the same way as my demonstration file. So, we good to move on? All right, let's move on. All right, that was conditional formatting. Let's talk about custom functions because this is kind of cool. Now, how many people have built a calculation field in FileMaker that referenced a custom function that they built? Okay, almost everyone. So most people know about custom functions. I'm going to show you my custom function. Now, this is super secret. You're under NDA. I'm going to pull back the curtain, and I'm going to show you the secret sauce of my highly, highly complex, thoroughly debugged custom function. And so if I go into manage custom, and by the way, I'm also going to give you a perpetual, lifelong license to use my custom function anywhere you want, as long as you, yeah, don't badmouth me. And here's my custom function. It's called 5. Can you imagine what it does? Yeah, there's my custom function. Oh, shoot. There it is. 5. And the formula is 5, and it returns the number 5. And so I have custom function stored and custom function unstored. And as you can imagine, the formulas are pretty straightforward. My custom function stored it's a stored calculation field, and it refers to my custom function 5. Same with the unstored one, only it's unstored. Okay? Nothing magic here. Okay, so, and as you can imagine, it gives me a 5, and if I try to change that, FileMaker doesn't like it. It's a calc field, won't let you. But I can change the formula behind the scenes. So if I go into manage custom functions, and I change my formula, and say, oh, in my world, instead of 5, the 5 function equals 3. I know, crazy. It's alive. Okay. I haven't hit OK yet, so it's safe to do this. I'm going to move this. Let's shrink you up so you can actually see what's going on in the background. So I'm going to hit OK here. Now, when I hit OK, that's going to commit this change to the custom function. And what's going to happen behind the scenes? Let's take a quick poll. This custom function stored field, do you think it's going to update? Raise your hand if you think it'll update. Jesse's brave. He's got one hand up. I can see a couple others. Raise your hand if you think it will not update. That's the majority of the room. What about the unstored field, though? Do you think it'll update? That's about half the room-ish. And then do you think it will not update? Okay, good. So, Jesse, you think the stored one will change and the unstored one won't. All right. That's awesome. Let's find out. I'm going to hit OK. 1, 2, 3. Keep an eye on both fields, and voila. What happened? Nada. Nunca. Nothing happened. And why? Well, correct, because the field's definition didn't change, and a change to a dependent custom functions formula falls outside the dependency tree of the calculation engine. So that's fine. How would you make it change? So what would happen if I, for instance, click into the field, the unstored field? You think that'll update it?
Yes.
Of course it'll update it. What about the stored one? You think that'll update it? Not at all. Nope. Now, if I made a new record, that new record in the stored field would have 3. Okay, but not the unstored one. Not in this record, rather, is what I meant to say. Now, before I released this out to the wild, actually, the version of the file that's up on the website has my custom function 5 with the number 5 in it. So no one's going to say, this guy's an idiot. He thinks 5 equals 3. Okay, that's fine. But I'm just going to change it back because I'm paranoid. Okay, so that's custom functions. I just wanted to point that out because people have asked me over the years, wait, I made a change to my custom function and it didn't update the fields. What's going on here? And they thought FileMaker is broken. And I went, well, no, the dependency tree isn't broken. It just doesn't include that extension of it. You can't force the calculation fields that depend on it to update like that easily. So, all right. How are we doing on time? We're doing great on time. All right. So, yes, questions.
You mentioned if you change the
field definition.
Yes.
If you open manage database, open the field definition, but do not change it.
Okay.
and then click OK.
Great question. So the question is this: if I were to change the custom functions definition, and then go into manage database and open up the fields definition, and then close it without editing it, and would that cause it to update? Well, let's find out. That's a great question. I'm going to redo my custom.
Just tickle it a little bit.
You hit OK versus not cancel. Yeah, very, very good point, but it doesn't make a difference. So I'm going to change my formula back to 3. Actually, no, I'm going to change it to something totally different so that we could actually see it.
Change it to 4 plus 1.
Yeah, right. Okay, so I'm going to hit that. We're good. Okay, now I'm going to go into manage database. And which field do you want me to tickle? Which is my field?
The stored one, yeah, the one that didn't change earlier.
Custom function stored. Okay, so stored one you want me to change. I'm going to pop it open. I can hit cancel or I can hit OK. Which one do you want me to hit? Okay, I'm going to click OK. Didn't make a change. I'm going to hit OK again. No change. Okay, it doesn't matter whether I hit cancel or OK at that point. No change means no change. FileMaker knows I didn't change the formula. Even though I'm hitting OK and OK, there's no change. So it didn't do a reevaluate. But if I were to retype that custom function and then hit OK, or space character, yeah. If I were to change the formula really in any way, even an insubstantial way. Oh, well, white space won't do it. How about this? I could do +0. That will do it. So that did it. Let me change my custom function again so I can make sure this works. I'll change it back to 5. Where are my custom functions? Back to 5. Hit OK. Hit OK. Now, what if I did something crazy like this? Custom function stored. Leave that formula alone. I'm just going to change it to text. Do you think that's going to do it?
Yeah.
Of course it is. Okay, so any change to the field will cause it to update. Make sense? All right, but changes to the function itself do not propagate out to fields that are defined on that function. Important to understand. Yes, sir.
Okay, so you got your stored calculation field that looks at the custom function.
Yes.
Change the custom function definition. You then migrate the file. Does the data in the new copy of the file migration to database have a newly evaluated?
So that's the question.
Demonstrate that.
Yeah. Okay. So the question for the audience is, so if I define my custom function, I redefine my custom function, but I don't do anything to the field, so it's still showing the old bad value. I migrate the data using the migration tool. Is that what you're asking? I migrate it into a clone of the file, like I'm migrating to a new version. Does the data that gets moved over, does it reevaluate because the migration came over? I have no idea. You're the engineer. You tell me.
Well, I believe the replace function, I need to change the function stored. The replace function, use that'll update.
But not if the replace function you're talking about in the tool itself.
Yeah, if you drop the menu, choose replace.
Oh, you mean replace field contents?
Yeah, replace field contents.
Well, it's a calculation field. You can't do that. If I click into a calculation field, that's not even there. It's not there. You can't pick it. But I would be interested to know what your results are. I'm guessing it moves the data without causing a reevaluate of the formula. So I'm guessing it would not that would not update it, but I'm not positive. I'm just going on gut here.
I think if I remember right, I think it's only using the calculation dependency tree. It doesn't have another one.
Yeah.
Since that tree doesn't have, something pointing to that function.
Yeah.
Definition. Pretty sure it probably won't be like.
Yeah, Clay's validating my guess.
So the migration tool does have an option to reevaluate all counts.
Yes, it does have that option. It has a toggle. Okay, so the migration assistant, the migration assistant also has an option to a toggle to reevaluate all calculations after you do the import, and that would force it. And if that's turned off, it would not do it. I'm pretty sure. So, and Clay's backing me up on that.
Going back to the replace, if you had this as auto enter calc or part of a script, you could then use replace function to update that.
So if it was an auto enter calc, you're saying that I could use replace to update it.
Yeah.
And that is correct. Or a script or a looping script, anything. When it's an auto enter calc, all bets are off because that's an editable field. You can do whatever you want with it, right? So yes,
So it would evaluate functions at times.
That's correct.
right. You could make it evaluate the custom function at the time of the replace and get the data back. Yeah, it's a pain in the rear when you have to do that sometimes. All right, so that's custom functions. Web viewer. Let's talk about the web viewer because I love this. This is fun, and this behavior has changed, and this behavior has changed with pretty much every version of FileMaker. So, okay, so when I first presented this session I was at Pause on Error in 2011, and I was in a cramped little hotel room, and I showed this behavior, and when I got to this screen, I'll show you the formula of my web viewer in just a moment, but I'm going to describe the behavior. The number that you see there, that big 4, was incrementing really, really fast. And it looked like a car's odometer when it's going at the speed of light. And I couldn't make it stop. And the reason it was doing that was because in FileMaker 11, there was some weird interaction when you're sharing your screen on another projected thing that it was triggering a refresh of the web viewer, and I couldn't. So my whole demo was a bust. I'm like, oh wow, that's weird. So I did this the very next year in FileMaker 12. 12 came out in the interim, and now I'm at DevCon 2012, and I demonstrated it, and it had certain behavior, and I liked it. The behavior was interesting. One of the behaviors was, if you'll notice, what did I do? Oh, I think I broke my demo. See, the behavior in 12 was, as I mouse in, it would increment, and as I mouse out, it would increment. This demo file, when you download it off the web, I believe, that won't happen. You have to do something to the web viewer to make that happen. I'll explain that in just a second. So what we have here is a web viewer. I'm going to go to layout mode. I'm going to show you my formula for my web viewer. Before I do, I got to let you know, the formula is super, super simple, but it looks more complex than it is. And that's because the web viewer formula has a lot of HTML padding so that it could blow up this number big enough so you could see it. But essentially it's a let statement, and the let is, I'm letting a variable called $, the counter, and I'm setting it to itself +1. And then I'm displaying the value. That's all it is. So every time the formula evaluates, the counter gets incremented by 1. Okay, and that formula looks like this. The better way to do it is this. I'm going to zoom in. So I'm setting the count to itself +1 and displaying the count, and then the rest is just formatting. Okay, that's all the formula for the web viewer is. And what I'm getting is an on mouse in and an on mouse out event. And the reason, can you imagine why that is? Yes, it's allow interaction is turned on. This is an interactive web viewer, and this checkbox is checked. Let me zoom in. Allow interaction with web content is turned on. If I turn that off, it disables my mouse over, my mouse in, mouse out. But with it enabled, we have a mouse in and mouse out event, which is very cool. If you had a plugin that called a script, you could trigger a script on mouse in and another script on mouse out. Very, very slick. Very cool. Pretty effective thing. There is another on mouse over event in FileMaker. Can you name it? Tooltips. Yes, very good. Telephone pole. All right. There is one other thing going on here that's kind of weird. I want to show you. Oh, wait, nothing. Gotta fix my web viewer for a second. If I anchor this, hello, where's my anchors? This is 2026, by the way. There we go. Thank you. There we go. So if I resize my window, ooh, look at that. What do you think is going on there? Yeah, every pixel is changing is causing it to reevaluate, but FileMaker is queuing up the refresh. It's not refreshing on drag, it's refreshing on mouse up. So that's a really effective thing too. Now we have the potential, if you're using a plugin, you have the potential for, well, to run a script 600 times by resizing a window. Slick. Okay. So the reason this mouse in and mouse out is working is more than just that it's interactive. The interactive has to be turned on, but the other thing that has to be turned on is this. The theme has to have a hover state. The style for that object has to have a hover state that is different than the default state. And that is what triggers it to refresh. If in the version that's loaded, in the version of my file that's loaded to the website, I don't think I have a hover state specified. So I think by default, unless I uploaded a new version, I might have. I think the version that you download when you download it does not have a hover state. So the on hover will not work, but that's how you make it work, is you give it a on hover style. Is that the right word? The states in the new inspector do not have copy and paste. Is that right?
I'm not sure if it would apply to the object you're on, but it applies to things that have colors.
Oh.
Where'd that go?
Well, the good news is this. Version 26.02 shipped yesterday. And I haven't looked at it, haven't updated, but someone told me that the old inspectors are back. So just update, and that they're available now. So, all right, that's that. The web viewer. All right, filtered portals. This is another one that's kind of cool. Has some gotchas though. Filter portals are another one of my favorite features. They work. They just work. Yeah, mostly, they just work. They work very similar to conditional formatting, except or the unstored calculation fields, except that they refresh as dependent data changes or as the screen is refreshed. But one thing that's important to understand about them is that they only refresh on commit. They can't refresh until that commit happens. And there's reasons for that. It's because by the nature of a portal, you're dealing with related data. And you don't want your related data necessarily. You don't want your changes to your related data to affect the parent record until the commit. So makes sense to me. I depend on that behavior. I think it's a good. So I have a local Boolean and I have a related Boolean. And can you guess how my portal is filtered? My portal is filtered when the child Boolean equals my local Boolean. So right now I'm showing all the zeros. And if I click to show 1, it hasn't updated yet until I commit. Make sense? Okay. Now there is a there is a gotcha here, and that's important. It's important to understand. The gotcha is if the formula for the filtered portal is based on a global field, then the commit is not sufficient to make it update. You also need a refresh window. And so I'm going to demonstrate that. So right now I'm going to change this to my global Boolean, and I'm going to change my formula so that it's the child Boolean matches my global Boolean. And I have my refresh window script. There's my refresh button down here. So if I change this to 0 and I click out, no update. The record's committed. You can tell it's committed because I don't have the dotted lines around the fields. But if I refresh the window, suddenly it's there. So change. Yes, refresh portal will do the same. Refresh object will also do the same. I'm just using refresh window because it's there. Because I'm lazy. But if it's based on a global, then it requires the refresh in addition to the commit. But if it's based on non-global data, then the commit is sufficient to make the update. Okay. All right. I wish someone had told me that way back when, because I wasted a lot of time spinning wheels chasing that one down for a while at one point. All right, calculated custom menu items. I love this. Okay, calculated custom menu items. How many people knew? Oh, I already pulled that, didn't I? And some people said yes, some people said no. And you might not notice it, but switching into this layout installed a new menu set. And I'm going to show you that if I zoom in, that my button does not say new record. It says new customer, right? And if under the records menu, the menu command is new customer. It is not new record. And you might think, okay, what's so special about that? Well, I did not specify the words new customer for that menu item. What I did was, if I go into my custom menu set and I go into my records copy and my new customer command, the item name is specified by a global variable called $$ menu item. It's a formula. You can specify it based on formula. Well, my formula is what's in $$ menu item. And can you imagine how that got set? My on layout trigger, the only trigger in my file, by the way, my on layout trigger, on layout enter trigger, set the variable, and then install the menu set. Zoom in for people that are out there. It set the variable, and then it installed the menu set. Okay, fine. Nothing special here.
What if you reverse that?
What if I install the menu set and then set the variable? Well, I'll show you that in a second. So, because I'm about to change the variable. So now I have a button, and this button, all it does is reset $$ menu item to the words new invoice instead of new customer, and then refresh the window. Okay, that's what that script does. Oops, that's the wrong thing to do. That's what I wanted to do. Okay, so now when I click this button, keep an eye up here on the new customer button up here. I'm going to zoom in so you can see that a little bit. When I click this button, how many people think that my new customer button is going to change to new invoice? Maybe one. How many people think it will not? That's the majority, well, half the room. All right, let's find out. I'm going to do this on 1, 2, 3. And just to make sure, I'm going to click it a couple more times. And nope, it says new customer still. Hello, please move my mouse. It says new customer still. And I have another script. I have a button here that displays the menu item, just to prove the point that it says new invoice, not new customer. Okay, so I'm sorry? So it is definitely changed. Yes, it's definitely changed. So what have we learned? Well, one thing I learned is that the script step that's called refresh window is misnamed. That's the wrong name. What it should be named is refresh window contents, because what that script refreshes is this section of the window down here. It doesn't refresh anything above this line. And that's part of the window, but it's like the window header, whatever you call that, the menu bar, it doesn't refresh the menu bar. It only refreshes the window contents. So how do I make it update? Well, can you imagine what I have to do? It's real straightforward and simple. I have to reinstall the menu set, and that's what this button does. So when I do that, suddenly my new customer button now says new invoice. Okay, let's go back. Let me come back in. When I come back in, my script trigger reset my variable, and I can prove it. It says new customer. My button says new customer. So now if I hide the menu bar and I do what? I'm going to reset to new invoice and refresh the window. But the records still say new customer, even though it's new invoice. Okay. And then if I show it now, it's still new customer because the menu set doesn't know that the variable changed. It's outside the dependency tree of the calculation that's in the menu set. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's that. And I chased down that one time. That was a big problem and had to figure that one out. And finally, conditional visibility. I love conditional visibility. The problem with conditional visibility, this is the only problem in my view, is that the conditional visibility hides an object when the formula is true. It shows the object if the formula is false. Conditional visibility really should be show objects, and it should show when they're true and hide when they're false. It's reversed. So you got to reverse your logic. And that hurts my brain every time. It's like looking at logarithms. Yes, sir.
And I have a really complicated condition for a hide. We wrap it in a knot.
Yeah, wrap it in a knot.
And then wrap it in a knot.
Yeah. And so, yeah, very, very, very complex conditional visibility can be simplified by wrapping the whole formula in a knot. Exactly. Very good. Yes, sir.
This is kind of a personal question, Darren. Everything in part 2 today wasn't in the first time I saw this presentation at DevCon ages ago. And a lot of times you seem to have instinctive saying, let's find out. Right?
Yeah.
And you even said that yesterday 2602 came out. So how devoted are you?
How devoted am I to finding out? So first,
to test this menu of things to see what's changed.
how devoted am I? Okay, I'll get to the answer to that question. First, let me point something out. Dennis, you said when you saw me present this at DevCon years ago, this whole second half you don't remember seeing.
Maybe, but I definitely didn't remember all the things that were invented since then.
Okay, so the last time I presented this at DevCon was in 2014. That's 12 years ago, and 12 years ago, I demonstrated every single thing that I'm demonstrating today, except for layout calculations, because they weren't there yet. In 2014, FileMaker, whatever it was, 13 or 14, whatever it was, had just come out and introduced layout visibility, conditional visibility. So I had updated my template to demonstrate conditional visibility, which is this screen right here I'm about to show. But everything else was in that demo, and I can prove I know that because I rehearsed this session by watching those videos of my DevCon presentations from years ago.
So you think I dozed off and missed it?
Comments at 2014.
Yeah, exactly. That's Alexi pointed out that my script comments say 2014 also. So yes, that's true. I probably should have updated that. Nah.
It looks like you're using classic theme.
You would think that this is classic theme. This is not. This is minimalist. I by the way, remove classic theme from all your files. Let me say that again. Remove classic theme from all your files. Classic theme is the devil. And when it's in your system, it is possessing your files. So you need to exercise that devil. You cast out that devil. Anyway, so let's talk about conditional visibility because it just works. I love conditional visibility as much as I love all the other stuff I've been showing you. You know, the conditional formatting. It just works, and it works immediately, and it works exactly how you want it to. And so right now I have, in this situation, I have a conditional visibility applied to my portal here, and it's the same formula for everything, but you can see that the formula, well, okay, the hide formula is when my local Boolean does not equal 1, then it hides. When it equals 1, it shows. Okay? Very simple. So right now, oh, wait a minute, maybe it hides when it's not 1. It shows when it's 1. Reverse logic. Okay, so when I click this to 0, it goes away immediately with no commit. Love that. Think it's awesome. Click again, comes back immediately with no commit. And if I make this my local, I mean my related rather, related Boolean, and I change my formula to my related Boolean, he's only mostly dead. Here's the beautiful part. Yes, I have some records that are set to 0 and they're not showing. And then when I change the first related records value, the whole portal goes away. That's fine. But I'm demonstrating that it goes away. This is related data changing, updating conditional visibility on click without a commit. Very slick, immediate, fast, dependable. I love it. So I think that's great. I'm going to switch this back because that's disturbing.
Is there a reason why you're not grouping all that and then just applying some?
Why am I not grouping it? Because I'm dumb. Because, yeah, I should have grouped it. You're right. Would have made it much easier, right? And
Even
you,
though you did this in 2014, you still didn't answer my question.
oh, I'm sorry. What was your question?
Do you wake up in the morning feel obliged to check every one of these to see if they've changed? Is that how you live?
No. Do I wake up in the morning feeling obliged to check all of this stuff to see what has changed and document it every morning? No, it's not every morning. It's how often? It's every new version, every new VREV of every new version. Basically, I kind of flew by the seat of my pants today because this day, the day of my presentation happened to fall on the day after a VREV shipped. And so you'll notice I am not running the VREV. You'll notice I am keeping with the original 22.01 or 26.01. And that's because I don't trust it. If I update, I just know some behavior is going to change, and it might. And I am, by the way, you're right. I am kind of OCD. I'm going to go test it. Believe me, after I update the new version.
Kind of like a dependency tree between you and Clara.
The dependency tree between me and Claris. All right, fair. Question.
2 questions. First, how expensive of an operation is installing a menu set?
How expensive of an operation is it to install a menu set? Yeah, he means performance-wise. Yeah, I have no idea. That's a great question. It's a very discrete operation. It's for the current window. So I imagine it doesn't matter how expensive it is. Really, really, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question quantifiably. It doesn't seem like a very.
The window per se, because you can change it by switching the layout without going to a new window.
You can change the menu set by going. Oh, you're right. It's not window dependent. It is layout dependent. Well, it,
You said
the-
could affect the time.
yeah, if you install a menu set and then you switch layouts and you switch to a layout that does not have a menu set specified, then it's going to leave that previously installed menu set, right?
It's gonna, the layouts default to the file default.
Right.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Okay. The layouts default to the file default. That's true. Okay. Uh,
You know, right, script
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, but that's not what the checkbox means, it's what it said.
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah. I don't know how to answer that question, but you had a second question.
Yeah, second question is, how does all this dependency tree stuff work with tunneled ODBC data?
How does all this dependency tree information work with tunneled ODBC data? Well, so here's the thing.
You have the SS tables on your graph.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple things. Number one, when you're on a layout that's based on an ESS table, an ODBC table, and you go into manage database, you can add calculations to that table that are called shadow fields, shadow calcs. They are only available in this file. You're not changing the ODBC data source, and they are unstored. They cannot be stored. They have to be unstored. So there is no such concept as a stored field, a stored calculation field that references ODBC data. That's at least not ESS data. You can have a scripted ODBC data source and script it, and then okay. So that's first. But the second thing is the unstored calculation field. The dependency tree is the same. One thing and only one thing will cause it to update. That one thing and only one thing is that the screen refreshes. So it doesn't matter if the data is in the same file, could be from another file, like a separation model. Doesn't matter if it's in a different database, like like Oracle through ESS. It doesn't matter. It's the calculation is going to behave the same, and it's going to have the same behavior that we demonstrated today. So, good question. But it has no bearing on the dependency tree of the calc. Any other questions? We're very close to time. I landed this plane almost on time. In fact, we're going to get to the gate a little bit early, unless there's other questions or. Yes, sir.
Is any of this document?
Is any of this document? Yeah, I have my file. Is any of this documented?
So a follow-up question with that is, somebody Bradford online was asking, where's the file going to be again?
This file is on okay, so you go to fullaccess.us. So the Full Access website. You go to my session and you download the file for my session.
You can also rate and comment on the sessions there as well.
Absolutely. You can rate and comment on my session there as well. Be kind. So is any of this documented anywhere? I am not aware of any official documentation for this other than like my file and my presentation, and my FM hacks, my FileMaker hacks blog entry that I did for Kevin.
That might put it in AI.
Put it in, well, yeah, I mean, if AI trolls the web, right? So if it trolled the FM hack site, then it's an AI. So you could probably Google it and it probably would come up with answers. So that makes sense. Anyway.
So my thinking is Claris is not going to change any of this basic behavior unless they absolutely feel necessary, because it could cause a lot of issues.
Be careful with that. So his observation is Claris is not going to change any of this behavior unless it's absolutely necessary or critical. And my response to that is be very careful with that, because FileMaker is a gigantic tangled knot of code. The program is. It's got millions of lines of code. It's a very, very complex thing. And a tiny change over here can have a ripple effect over there. Correct. Unintended consequences. I call it dominoes fall. And there are times when I have made a request I would like to see this. And an engineer made the change. Oh yeah, I got that for you. Here's the change. And it broke something else that I did not expect. So do not assume. Now, I can assume this. I think it's a good assumption that no one in the engineering department at Claris will intentionally break FileMaker. That's a good assumption. In fact, I can guarantee that. But yeah, you can never tell what's going to happen when they make a change. And I've seen behavioral changes that I considered bad, but they were made because they were the result of a request from someone else that saw it as a good thing. Follow me? So you can see that happens all the time. And like I said, the behavior has changed over the course of time, specifically with the web viewer. The web viewer's behavior has changed, and more than once over time. So I don't know that you can guarantee that it'll stay the same. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you mentioned eliminating the classic theme.
Yes,
Like,
eliminating the classic theme.
right, can you just like cover real quick, like
Why?
the process to do that?
Oh, so the process to do is a very painstaking process. So the question is, how do you eliminate the classic theme? What's the process? The process is this. Okay. Unfortunately, you cannot determine the themes that are applied to your layouts in one local centralized place. If you go to Manage Layouts, you will notice that one of the columns is not the theme. I wish it was. I wish it was. That would make what I'm about to describe much easier to do. You have to go one by one, each layout. Find your layouts that have the classic theme and switch them to something else. We use minimalist because minimalist makes the fewest thematic changes to the objects. The fewest. It still changes stuff. You still have to fix things. But switch over to a different theme until every single layout in your file is no longer using classic. Then in Manage Themes, in Manage Themes, you delete the classic theme. You'll notice the classic is not in this file. This is a file that I've converted from FileMaker 11. So it definitely did at one point have the classic theme, but I ripped that out as soon as I possibly could. There was a time when you recover the file.
If you do,
Uh-huh.
you go through the log file.
Yeah,
There,
it's
still there.
even after you delete it. So Alexi's telling me if you recover the file and look at the log file, it still references the classic theme, even though it's no longer in this view. And has been deleted. Yeah, I'm telling you, it's the devil.
So normally our process is to select everything on the layout, cut it, right? Go back to browse mode, so there's nothing on the layout. Switch the theme, go back in the layout mode, and paste it back in. Is there a reason not to do that? Because then it doesn't say anything about any of the layout.
Yeah. So the question is,
except for the tab order.
Gotcha. Except for the tab order. Okay. So his process is when they find a layout that has the classic theme, they go into the layout mode, they select all, they cut, they switch the theme to something else, then they paste. And he's asking, is there any reason not to do that? Well, other than time constraint, I mean, here's the thing. Keep in mind that just because the layout is no longer using the classic theme does not mean that there are not classic elements on the objects that are on that layout, because you can custom format something away from the underlying theme, right? You're in a layout, it's in the minimalist theme. I can say this field is bold, and now it has that little red icon, when you're in layout mode, to show that you've changed the style for that object. Would you like to save that to the theme? And if you don't save it to the theme, then you have extraneous styles applied that are outside of the theme, right? So, and when you select all and copy, it preserves those. So when you paste, they're still there. So that's not a necessarily, in my view, that's not necessarily a panacea. That's not a guarantee that you're going to fix that problem. I don't think we did cut and paste, Andres, when we did. Oh, paste without style, that did it? Okay, so we cut and then we pasted it without style, which is holding down the option key on the Mac. Yeah, then you have a lot of work to do. It's not easy. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying do yourself a favor, get rid of the classic theme. There was a hand over here. Yes, sir.
I was just going to share an experience that was a cautionary tale about that, because all the things you talked about with the objects still referencing classic.
Mm-hmm.
I went through all the cut, changed the layouts to another theme, paste everything back in, went through and then removed classic from the menu and destroyed layouts across a vastly complex system, because they all had been built over years and had been
Gotcha.
modified, and so it's something to be very cautious of.
Yeah.
I had not heard the paste without theme option, but
paste without style. Yeah.
Without style, but I guess that would be the same result of what ended up happening to all my
Yeah.
layouts.
So his point was, after painstakingly cutting and pasting objects and then changing themes, he removed the classic theme and it destroyed the layouts in the file in a very, very complex system,
You can't undo that.
which cannot be undone. Correct. You cannot undo the delete of a theme, but you can go to a backup. Yeah. Okay. Fair. All right. Yeah. Fair enough. Yes, sir.
What exactly is so terrible about the classic?
What is so terrible about the classic theme? Okay, so the worst case scenario is that you have WebDirect turned on. Okay, because WebDirect does not play well with the classic theme and can literally crash your file, cause the file to crash, corruption, bad, bad, bad. But even if you're not using WebDirect, which most of the files that I was dealing with were not, the classic theme can cause serious instability in FileMaker, because there's a huge amount of overhead that the client has to do when it's dealing with a layout that has the classic theme. Huge amount of overhead, and that overhead can lead to instability, like memory overruns. And I've seen situations where we have a robot machine. You know what I mean by a robot? Not a run script on server. It's running on a client, but the client's a dedicated client to do some complex process. Fine. I've had situations where I came in the morning and the robot's gone. It's the machine's running, but FileMaker's gone. And when I log in, nothing that it was supposed to do last night happened, and it crashed the app because of the classic theme. We removed the classic theme from that file. The crash has stopped. That might be, now hang on. Now that might be my superstition. I cannot definitively say that removing the classic theme removed the corruption from the file, or whatever, however you want to word that. But what I can say anecdotally, I can say for sure it stopped our crashing.
Is there any similar consequence to the extended privilege for instant web publishing?
Is there any
Still there?
Is there any similar consequence for the extended privilege for instant web publishing? You mean the classic theme? The problem with the classic theme is the actual web publishing, not the privilege being turned on. So that ancient carried forward extended privilege for IWP that is no longer used, and if you make a brand new file, you don't see it. That privilege set is moot. It doesn't have any effect in a modern version of FileMaker, I would think. Yes, Ken.
Maybe it will help with the arcade process if you just give it to and try to go
Oh, I didn't know that. Ken's saying if you go to a manage themes and you select the theme that you want to delete and you try to delete it, FileMaker will helpfully tell you all the layouts that it's on. At least one at a time. Fair enough. Fair enough. Oh, well, hey, that helps. Yes, sir.
I was just so when we were talking about cutting and all the objects and then pasting them back, I learned probably the coolest FileMaker tip that I've learned in the last year is that if you have copied something and you're going to go paste it and you want to make sure it lands in exactly the same spot, go into browse mode, then go back to layout mode, and when you paste it will be fixed. exactly in the.
Oh, see, I've always been okay. So he's saying if you're going to copy something from one layout to another, and you want to paste it, and you want it to go into exactly the same spot, just switch to browse mode and then back to layout mode, then paste, and it'll be in the exact same spot. And don't click. And don't click when you're in layout mode. Okay, see, what I do is I just draw a square that's in the top left corner, and I select that object at the same time, and then okay, fair enough. That's it. That's a better. Okay, well, we are over. We are technically over, right? It ended at 5:30. Are we still recording?
Yeah,
We are.
Okay, are we still streaming?
yeah.
Okay. I'm willing to stay as long as you guys are willing to stay and ask questions. Are there questions from the streamers that have not been answered? Oh.
Dinner's at 6. So.
And good. Dinner is at 6, so we got 20 minutes.
Okay, if you turn up your volume, you might be able to hear Tony White directly.
If I turn up my volume? Oh, my volume is out. Oh.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Oh, we get
How's it working out?
we get
Can you guys hear me?
Here.
Yes.
Many times
A little bit of an
over,
echo,
Tony.
apologies for that. I dropped some links into the Zoom chat.
Oh, sorry.
Totally agree with the Get Off Classic, and we did a blog post and a Dig FM presentation on how to do it and get it down to, once you have your theme set up, it's about a minute per layout. It solves the problem. If you cut, you lose the tab order. But you can, if you build the theme right, and it's a long topic, but it's up there recorded, Dig FM meeting, and there's links in the Zoom chat. And by the way, terrific presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Classic.
Classic. But
It is a classic. Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. Today, I feel. Oh, okay. All right. Last. Go ahead.
I know you said at the beginning that you weren't going to cover this, but I forgot your reasons for not covering it. So
What's-
I'm just gonna ask you to restate your reason.
For-
The dependency tree for privilege sets.
Oh, I forgot that I was going to cover that. Thank you. Yeah, the reason I didn't cover that is because it would be overly complex to build into my little solution and hard to demonstrate. But I want to explain something because this was a gotcha also. The behavior for record level access is the same as stored calculation fields, which means they evaluate. Okay, so when you open the file, if the record level access formula does not reference local data, if it doesn't reference local data, it will evaluate once and only once on file open for every record. Okay. So if, for instance, you're setting a variable like $$ has access based on some complex logic, and your RLA formula says if $$ has access equals 1, then you can edit the record. It's going to evaluate once and only once on file open at the time the file opens, and never update again during that session. So but if your formula is file table : creator equals get account name, that'll update every time a record is accessed. And that's how you want to do it. You need the formula to reference local data if you want it to update as the records are navigated. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So on file open, does that include the on first window
Nope.
script?
Nope. It evaluates before the script runs. It's terrible. Well, hang on. Let me take a step back. I haven't tested it in recent versions of FileMaker. The last time I tested this was 2012, 2013, right in there. So FileMaker 13 or 14, right in there. But every version before that had record level access since FileMaker 7, behaved the exact same way. It was the same behavior. So up to that point, I'm assuming it's never changed because as far as I know, well, wait a minute, there was a security refresh, so maybe it did get fixed. I don't know. I'm sorry. Okay, Kent says it still works the way I just described as of 2022. I was working for my biggest client, Claris, and they had a database that had record level access, and it was based on the opening script setting a global variable and comparing that global variable to other conditions that were not field related, and that's the important thing, and it didn't work, and we filed it as a bug. And engineering replied back, "This is not a bug. This is how it works." And we went, "Oh, okay, I guess we have to change our methodology." So, and that's, by the way, that's a perfectly valid answer. This is not a bug. Fix your file, guy. I'm like, okay, fine. I'll go fix my file. So anyway, all right.
Pull way back. If somebody is not familiar with FileMaker, you might not mention code, but somebody's not familiar with FileMaker. A lot of this has to do with the fact that so many things are automatically updated and refreshed through FileMaker and
Right.
to the client, and somebody who doesn't know about that, they would
It's
go,
that might have. I probably should have started out because I do know that there are people, or Shruti, are visitors, not visitors, the people that are the winners of the what scholarship. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. The scholarship people do not have the deep familiarity with FileMaker that we do, and so yeah, I probably should have led. I buried the lead. I probably should have led with the fact that FileMaker, the beauty of calculation fields is that FileMaker handles the updating of them for you. It's like a stored procedure on a backend. Okay, kind of. The problem is the rules that I described in this session are mysterious and not documented, and or poorly documented, and people wonder. And there's especially with relation to calculation fields, people wonder what are the rules. FileMaker's handling the updating, but what are the rules that force it to update? And that's why the session exists, was to explore the why of it and the how of it. So
some of the people who are doing AI development, they're like, I mean, they put out there, I'm never going to do another FileMaker layout ever again because I'm going to do everything through the web or something like that. And how much does this affect them now if they actually go down that road?
So the question is for people that are going to be using like agentic AI to develop in FileMaker, and they're thinking, I'm never going to have to build a new layout. I'm never going to have to build a script. The agent's going to handle all that for me.
They're going to do it through either web.
Yeah, through whatever, through some other mechanism. Yeah. How does this information affect them? That's a great question. Well, AI is only as good as the stuff you feed it, and it's very possible that your AI will know all of this stuff instinctively and work correctly, and to set it right. It's also very possible that the AI will produce a solution like a novice developer would that will trip them up with this stuff. So this might be very, very useful. I think it's going to be very useful for years to come, this information. But then I'm biased.
Especially like, even if you set aside the dependency tree stuff for various layout objects, the field level objects are still critically important. Like that's your data.
Yeah.
Right. Whatever front end you are using to draw, you are drawing off of that underlying data. So
yeah.
You need to understand how that underlying data is getting.
Yeah. So his point is it's still critically important because at least, especially for field level objects, for calculation fields, the dependency tree information, it affects the way that the dependency tree works. It affects your data. And so it's critically important to know how that works. I totally agree with you. Yes, sir.
Well, I mean, one of the main things when you're working with a web layer, like web viewer layout like that, it doesn't have all the things you get for free with FileMaker, like what you're talking about.
True.
Refresh, if somebody else edits a record over here, it's not going to automatically refresh that web viewer
Me,
You have to.
true. Layout objects like the web viewer do not necessarily, especially the web viewer, because it's based on whatever you're feeding it. Does not come with all of the built-in niceties of FileMaker, like the automatic refreshes and whatnot. Very true. But the trade-off of that, the upside of that is the web viewer can do a lot more than FileMaker's UI can do, because it's open. It's the Wild West out there. So you could throw whatever you want JavaScript into it and make whatever you want. So, okay. Are we good? Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it. All right.